Thank you, Siddharth. You haven't done anything as yet, but thanks nevertheless. Well, a very good evening to all of you, and what a great pleasure and honor it's for me to be here. I believe there have been 2 to 3 days of great deliberations here on media and entertainment industry. You know, if you were to ask this question to yourself, what makes a nation? The answers could come varying from industries, education, transportation systems, etc., etc. But I think what truly makes a nation is character. And what all of you are associated with is something that builds character. In media and entertainment, when the large number of youth of a country are engaged in all these activities ranging from transportation, aviation, education, etc., all of them, if there's a common thread between them, is reaching out to the content put out by you, which is either entertainment or news or so on and so forth. And today, your industry has the ability to reach out to the entire world. With 1 Indian in every 6 citizens of the world, you have the ability to connect across continents, to connect across cultures, to raise revenues, to raise jobs, to exchange culture. It's a very powerful medium. And India is poised to become a global phenomenon in the media and entertainment industry. There's a lot of hard work required though. Streamlining of structure, the use of technology to enable us to become what we are, what potential we have of. All said and done, despite all the technology and the ability to reach out to most people, I think what is most important is the content. And we should be able to produce such content which, irrespective of the packaging and the marketing, it should still be able to make a foothold in any nation that we want to. We obviously have a very large audience which is keen to see and hear what you put out there. But there's also a large audience other than our own diaspora that we can target as audiences. The Middle East for one, Africa for another, and US of course. This is something that we can learn from the United States, which in the last couple of decades has been able to push across, in a very subtle way, its culture across the boundaries. And perhaps it's time for us to do the same. In the Information Broadcasting Ministry, we've been working hard to improve our media units. The Prime Minister himself has been able to popularize the radio. And radio's expanding by leaps and bounds. We are about to launch the phase 3 auctions. We're starting with about 315 cities, but we'll move on to many more. Perhaps in 2 years' time, we would have about 800 to 900 cities having a FM station, or multiple FM stations. On the certification board side, we've decided to redo the Cinematographic Act. We've had the Justice Mudgal Committee give us their viewpoint, which got completed about a year and a half ago. And after deliberations, we've decided that we will redo the Cinematographic Act. We want to make film certification content-based. We want the certification board to be a certification board. We want to have online processing so that a filmmaker is able to see his dates, the schedule of the certification board, and apply for those dates. This entire process is going to bring in speed and transparency. We want to improve our films and television institutes. I was speaking to some of the filmmakers, and they highlighted the point that the most important, or one of the most important things in a film is the script itself. And in India, people who write good script is lacking. And perhaps one of the reasons is there is no structured education towards script writing. And in Films and Television Institute, we have the various faculties there that we need to improve it. And one of the best ways to improve it is to have the film industry or the television industry partner us in the Films and Television Institute. The Information Broadcasting Ministry wants to create a center of excellence for gaming, animation, and special effects. We want this center of excellence to be a benchmark for all subsequent centers of excellence that come up later. But to do this, it's just not the government itself that can move ahead. The government can put up land, it can put up money, it can put up infrastructure. But it's only you who can give life to such an institution. We want the industry to become partner in our pursuit of setting up this center of excellence. The faculty has to be experts. The institute has to be located close to the industry. The proximity will allow the experts to come and take lectures. The students should have access to projects, internship, to jobs. And that is the only way this institution can remain a benchmark that we all are visualizing and hoping it to be. We have about 200 million houses that have television sets. We have about 160 million youth who have mobile sets. Half of them are smartphones. We have about 1 lakh newspapers. 92% of the country is covered by radio. And one amongst every world citizen, like I said earlier, is an Indian. I think with this fundamental resource, we are poised to be superpowers in media and entertainment. And now it's our ability to use this fundamental resource to the best of our abilities. As government, we would want to be interacting with different sectors amongst you to hear your issues, to hear your bottlenecks. You are the ones who face it every day. And once we hear of those bottlenecks, and once we hear of your suggestions, we would be more than keen to iron them out and make it easy for you to do business. As I said right in the beginning, you reach out to every, not just an Indian, but you have the ability to reach out to every world's citizen. And you appeal to their heart. And therefore, your content, your ability to reach, you being the ambassadors of our country is extremely critical for us, and we would like to make you even stronger and better. So thank you so much for this opportunity and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for that, sir. I'm very happy to be sharing the stage today with a minister who, in my last few months, I have noticed has made a comprehensive and a deep approach to reach out to the entire industry and to understand the issues that we face, to understand how the government can partner with us better, and to understand how it is that we can work together to take the media and entertainment industry forward. So I thank you for that, sir. I'm just going to make a few quick remarks, and what I'll probably do is intersperse a few questions to the minister between my remarks. So we'll make this a fairly free-flowing session. It was supposed to be 10 minutes of talk from me, but I think everyone wants to hear from you today. So to start with, I'd like to take off from what the minister just said about the fact that the 20th century was considered to be the US century in terms of the soft power that they exercised on the world. Why is it that we can't look at making India the soft power of the 21st century? I just wanted to bring to your attention, and probably many of you know this subliminally but don't really realize it, there is one very strong connection between the US and India when it comes to media and entertainment. And this is a pretty, it's a pretty amazing statistic when you think about it. More than 90% of the content and the revenue in both these countries comes from local content. More than 90% of the viewership and the revenue. These are the only two countries in the world where this happens. Most other countries don't have a thriving local film industry, they don't have a thriving local television industry. So why is it that India's not been able to make the jump and go into those countries and really create a ripple there? One is obviously because of our language. The fact is that Hollywood goes out in English and US television shows go out in English, which is the most widely spoken language in the world. The other one is that they have made a concerted effort over the years to ensure that their content goes out and does this. We have a bit of a paradox in that because we've got such a thriving local content industry, we've never really had to make the effort that French cinema or Spanish cinema or the various cinemas and television and really other media schemes from around the world have had to do. We in India have been quite content with our 1.2 billion population and with the 30 million South Asian diaspora overseas. So, sir, what I just wanted to ask you was about, do you think there is an opportunity for us to be able to leverage the soft power that we have as a nation, which is not really commensurate to the scale of the media and entertainment business at this point of time, but could be in the future? And is there something that we can work together with the government to be able to take that thought forward?
Siddharth, absolutely. I think it's a must that we take advantage of India's soft power. Now, I've always believed that the most easiest way across the borders and into the hearts of all citizens of the world is through your culture. And there's nothing better to promote our culture than the films or the serials or the songs or the various content which is there on the television and the films. Now the point is, one, the content, two, our ability to reach out. And to that effect, I think one of the most important things is, after having realized that yes, it is important, nerve structure, other resources, training, expertise, exchanges with the other countries, technology exchange with the other countries, everything is possible. And we have already started doing that. We've had a treaty signed with Canada for films. We have had with China. And therefore, 50,000 Chinese theaters can now show Indian films on a revenue sharing basis. You can imagine the amount of revenue there is once they are not just buying it, but sharing it with us.
Yeah, we've just done that for our film PK, and that is scheduled to release pretty soon. So we have taken advantage of exactly that. And I guess to your point, when it comes to movies like The Lunchbox, when it comes to movies that are actually able to resonate outside of being relevant only to a South Asian diaspora, we see the way that those movies succeed overseas. So there's no reason why there might not be more of that in the future. What you raised, sir, was a very interesting point about the investment in creative talent and the fact that if we can do things together as a private and public partnership, we can actually raise the quality of creative talent at this point of time. Again, I just wanted to share a few glass half full and a few glass half empty statistics with you. The glass half full statistics are that, you know, we make 1,600 movies a year. There are more than 3 billion admissions in this country. As you said, there are thousands of television and radio channels and lakhs of print publications. We are scheduled, as per the latest report that we've just released, to double this industry within the course of the next 5 years. And we're the only media and entertainment industry to really be in a double-digit growth phase. So that, I think, really is a good news. We're amongst the top 10 media and entertainment nations in the world as well. It all sounds great. The glass half empty, unfortunately, is that at this point of time, we enjoy the lowest percentage of income from an individual when you compare our country to other countries. The media and entertainment industry only takes away 9% of the share of the wallet of an individual at this point. Only 1% of the global media and entertainment revenue comes from here. Our whole industry, when you compare the size of our whole industry, it's less than the business of the top 15 films released in Hollywood. And we really do have miles to go. I think when you look at a country like China, which has managed to actually give a fair amount of impetus to its industry, in 2009, their film industry was smaller than ours. Today, they're competing with the US. They have 18 screens opening a day. They've got 90 screens per million as far as their population goes. We have 8. The US has 130. This has happened because the government has actually worked on various SOPs in order to encourage the exhibition sector there, in order to encourage the media and entertainment sector there, because they realize that not commensurate to the size of that sector can be the impact of that sector on social and cultural change, both in China as well as outside of it. Do you think our government would be open to looking at the media and entertainment sector, which has been fairly unregulated in the past, but has become very regulated over the last couple of years, in a way that the other developing markets like China are looking at their sectors and saying, this is not the time to milk this industry, because frankly the cost to the exchequer will really be negligible right now considering the scale of the industry. This is a time to give impetus to the industry and really try for it to grow in the years to come. Is there some way we can look at an elaborate plan to be able to have that sort of support and backing from the government going forward?
Well, the glass half full at least gives us an opportunity to do something, right? And I guess, my sense of the industry is that it's working in different directions. It's working on an individual effort. What China has been able to do, and what US has already done, is to concentrate the entire energies onto a certain specific direction. I think that is what is required in the Indian industry now. And for that, like I mentioned earlier, is the ability to interact more often, and for us to understand your strength, and for you to be able to constructively come together and move in a certain specific direction. There are certainly great opportunities now that the glass is half empty for us to move ahead in terms of marketing of the films abroad. Now, till now, the Information Broadcasting Ministry has been holding a whole lot of seminars, film festivals, purely for marketing of films. But this we've been doing for art films mostly. And I think perhaps there is an opportunity to do it for films across the board. And do it more often, and do it more aggressively. Also, when the government is trying to hold film festivals, government typically is not an expert in this field, and therefore when you join your forces, you bring in your expertise with us, then together we'll be able to market them better. We will also be able to understand what are the lacunas that you need the government to address, and then those can be addressed specifically. So yes, we should move ahead, and it's imperative, I guess.
I'm now going to go down a bit down the part of regulation and taxation, because of course you're here and we would like to take that opportunity to bring up a few things. As I was saying, this has been a fairly unregulated sector in the past, and that has led to a certain amount of growth as far as the sector is concerned. It was also, frankly, because it wasn't taken very seriously, and therefore it was unregulated because it was just left to do its own thing. What is the sense that the media and entertainment industry has over the last few years is that the regulations have increased, but we're not taken as seriously at this point of time when it comes to being able to give us the benefits of being recognized as an industry. And I'll just cite a couple of points. This has nothing to do specifically with this government. It's just about the sense that one has had over the last few years. And I'll just run down a few lists in terms of the regulations that we've had. As far as our taxation is concerned, it is a non-structured environment at this point. There are various slabs of taxation that are not necessarily uniform. When it comes to the film industry, you've got entertainment tax, you've got service tax, you've got VAT. We hope all this is subsumed under GST, but that it has been a very big burden on the whole sector in the last few years because of the extent of taxation on the industry. Certification and not censorship, as you have so rightly pointed out. There have been instances over the last few months where there have been a few issues when it came to that. I must say that you have made a point to clarify what exactly this government's view is on that. And I will say personally that a film like Haider, which won 5 national awards last week, was considered to be very left of centre, whereas this government is considered very right of centre. And I think that film actually did demonstrate that the government was not involved in any way in the decisions taken at the central level as far as entertainment is concerned. Having said that, there have been some concerns on censorship in the last few weeks and months. There has been a Copyright Act that was passed, but there were no copyright societies that were created after that. So that's left a fair amount of dissonance as far as the content creators are concerned about who bears which part of the royalty payments, and those copyright societies are yet to be formed. Law enforcement permissions, as we saw recently with the Seinfeld show getting cancelled here in Bombay, it's a small incident, but the sort of embarrassing signal that it sends out to various performers around the world when they think of coming to India almost indicates that India is not a place where you can trust whether something will happen or not. There's been a delay in the digitization as far as the television sector is concerned as well, phase 3 and phase 4. We hope that that is implemented soon. Radio, of course, there have been certain delays in phase 3. There's a 26% FDI cap. So I can go on, and there's a triple consent on VAS offerings, which was not there earlier. There are ad caps on broadcasting, which is important for me to litanize in order to make the point that there are so many regulations on this industry at a point of time when it can actually jump to the next level and flourish. So would this government look at being able to help us out with these and really do the right thing as far as regulating is concerned? Don't under-regulate, but don't over-regulate as well?
Certainly, we need to be changing with time. And in some ways, we've demonstrated very clearly that your fears are unfounded. In some ways, you would see soon, once we start interacting, when we start knowing your issues, that we would be addressing them and making it easier for you. Let me start with the certification process, or famously called the censorship. I make it a point to call the word certification always. It's a certification board. In January, when the board was reconstituted, not entirely, of course, there were a few members which are there from the past as well. Since then, there have been about 200 films that have come to the certification board. Only 23 out of 200 were needed to go beyond the first examining committee, which actually is great. Only 23 were required to go to the second stage, and only 2 were required to go to the tribunal. I think that is a fabulous statistics. Now, I understand where the fear is coming from, and to that extent, I think that has been addressed by the board itself, wherein the board decided that a certain list will be put aside and will be dealt with later. It's a smart way of handling an issue that is cropped up. As far as the government is concerned, because all of you would feel that what the certification board is doing is what the government has directed it to do. So to that extent, let me make it very clear today as well, and I made it clear earlier as well, that the government believes that this is a certification board. And to that extent, when we do the new Cinematographic Act, we might just take the alphabet C out because it confuses people from certification and censorship and may call it ratings, a ratings board. The idea is that we as parents or as individuals need to know what we are going in to see. Whether it's an adult film, and perhaps we might bring in the US certification system of 12 plus, 17, 15, whatsoever it is, so that we as individuals are aware that this is certified as a such and such film, and it is for such and such reasons that it has been certified this film. And we as individuals are mature enough to understand and then make an informed decision. The certification board, of course, is an independent body, and I think now that our discussions have taken place with the industry, the fears are reduced, and the certification board will perhaps demonstrate it in the upcoming films as well. Some of the other issues that you raised were about taxations. Now that's again something that unless the industry does not interact with the government will not know where the shoe is pinching you most. And once we do that, these will start getting eased out. But some of the taxes which have been kept out of GST is only for the reason that gradually, since we are moving towards GST, there is a certain time period required for people to get accustomed to it, for the states who are feeling a little unsure about what the GST is, and therefore some taxes have been kept out, but which would finally come into the GST as well.
We had a Copyright Act that was passed, which was an amendment to the earlier Copyright Act. After that, it was envisaged in that particular amendment that there would be copyright societies that would be formed to determine the mode in which the new royalties would be paid out. Unfortunately, what's happened is that those copyright societies have never been formed, and so the entire burden really is on the producer of that content to now bear the provisional hit that someone he's selling that content to might perceive that there might be. So that is actually affecting commercial negotiations going forward, and it's all because there are no copyright societies that have been formed. So that's something that it would be really helpful for this government to look into, because this was something that was passed a few years ago, but since then nothing's happened.
Sure. So once I think it's the best is for you to come up and discuss with the government, bring out specific issues or examples wherein you can show to us how it's affecting you and how it's not taken shape the way it should have earlier, and where the failures are. And then we'll make an amendment to it. Another point that you made earlier was the local taxations. Now we want to create a single window for the filmmakers to get their clearance. And I do believe, and I've learned that it's a great harassment for some of the filmmakers to get permissions. And despite the permissions, I think there's still that harassment that continues. Now, a lot of local government is responsible for these permissions. However, we in the center want to create a center of a single window clearance, which then encourages the states to create a single window clearance and encourages the cities, the local government there, to do the same. Again, the point remains, we in the government are unaware as to what are the bottlenecks. So the industry it would be wonderful if the industry gives us a checklist of when you go out to make a film, what are the kinds of permissions that are required by you? Who are the kind of people who come and harass you despite your permissions? And then once we are aware of those things, then we can address it to the particular states and the particular cities. And then perhaps we can have incentives for some of the cities that give you easier permissions and quicker permissions. And then that would become a certain standard for the other cities to follow.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So since we've been pointing the finger forward, there are 4 fingers that point back to us as well. I just want to let you know that we acknowledge that. And I just want to sort of acknowledge a couple of things that we as the media and entertainment industry need to be doing better. So this is not really a question and more of an acknowledgement, so that you know we don't only blame things outside of ourselves. What has happened in the last few years, I think, is that as content creators, we have let the risk-reward ratio in the media and entertainment business be completely skewed, and those taking the risks have not been the ones being able to reap the rewards of that risk. And that actually has led to a pretty lopsided business model, especially in the film industry. What has happened is that we've let the lowest common denominator from the outside really determine what the market value should be. And very often in an industry like that, because of glitz and glamour, you have certain elements coming in and doing things which are just not economically viable. What's happened is that we've actually let our decisions be dictated by those rather than by sound business logic. And I think going forward, the entire film industry has realized that that really is a problem, and that is a wake-up call to all of us. And that's something that we need to fix going forward. The cost model needs to be corrected. I think the other thing is the value that we ascribe to our content. In an age today where you've got 1.5 billion video views a day, where you've got a user of video content watching more than 5.5 hours of that content a day on an average, content proliferation is huge. In that environment, because of such ease of access to content, most users now assume that that content, because it's so easily available on various pirated websites as well as freely available elsewhere, that content doesn't really have any value for them. What happened with the home video business a few years ago was it got wiped out completely, and not as much because of piracy or shorter windows, but more because the people within the industry actually created self-inflicted wounds by lowering the value of their content completely, and therefore making it such that the user didn't see value in it either. I think it's important for us to realize that when we put out content free of cost completely for this mad rush for user acquisition, we actually devalue that content in the eyes of the consumer as well. That's one. Two is the whole run in the approach to digitization has been less carriage costs and the ability to actually have addressability in order for us to be able to raise the average revenue per user. With us devaluing our content ourselves, that might actually be a move that will be stymied as far as we're concerned. So this is more to let you know that we also have a lot of looking in the mirror to do as an industry, but the more that we can get help from the government, the easier the task will be to ensure that India goes forward as a soft power of the next century.
Thanks a lot for actually speaking about some of the things that the industry can do. We in the government want to make it very clear to the entire industry that if there is something that the government can do to make you more stronger, to facilitate some of the things you need to come up with content with better reach, then the government would be more than pleased to do it, because that's our job to be doing it. Together, if we are able to work in a certain direction, and there's a degree of trust that develops, I think that would be great for the industry as well as for the government and therefore the entire nation. I think that is the essence of the whole thing, that there is a lot of trust deficit. There's a lot of gap also. Perhaps not much discussions have taken place between the government and the industry. And some of the leaders of the industry who perhaps represent the larger sections need to take upon themselves to not only discuss within yourself, but also to come up to the government or invite us more often, so that we can take this whole process of, be it certification, be it funding, be it taxation, be it ease of doing your business, be it ease of filming, whatsoever be it, that we would be more than willing to help you out.
Thank you, sir. That's a point very well taken. I'd just like to say that, you know, in the final analysis, it's refreshing to have a minister and to have a government who is so open to looking at a dialogue with the media and entertainment industry. We've not enjoyed it to that extent in the past, and we look forward to the journey in the future. I would urge the government to look at us not for just our size, but more for the impact that we could have on the cultural mores of the country, as well as to take India's story further, much further globally. And to take forward the Make in India, you know, the whole theme of Making in India, because if you look at it and you look at the fact that more than 90% of the content in this country that is enjoyed, that is revenue mined and that is viewed actually comes from this country itself. It is a huge uniqueness that we have versus any other country other than the United States. And that actually could propel us into being the soft power for this century. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.